The wind screamed across the frozen land like a ghost in pain. Daniel stood in front of a lonely grave, his space boots deep in snow. The planet was dead, cold, and full of silence, just like his heart since she died. He stared at the small stone. He carved by hand. The name Aris was written on it. She had been more than just a partner. She was everything. 1 year ago, Aris had died during a failed mission. They were researching this ancient planet, hoping to find something valuable. Instead, they found death. She saved him by pushing him away from the collapsing tunnel, but she was buried beneath it. Daniel couldn't dig fast enough. By the time he reached her body, it was cold and lifeless. He buried her right there and promised he would return. And he did, every month, but this time felt different. The air was heavier, the silence was deeper. Daniel knelt beside the grave, placing a small flower, a blue crystal bloom he grew in his ship's greenhouse. It was her favorite color. "I couldn't save you," he whispered. "I'm sorry." His voice cracked as he fought back tears. He reached out and touched the icy ground. That's when it happened, a soft pressure on his shoulder, like a hand. His heart stopped. He didn't move at first, thinking it was the wind or his mind playing tricks. But the touch came again, gentle, real. He slowly turned his head. Standing behind him was a figure, a woman, pale and silent. She looked just like Aris, same hair, same soft eyes, same small scar near her jaw. She wore a thin white suit that shimmered in the light, but her skin was too pale, too cold. Daniel stumbled back in shock. "Aris?" he said in disbelief. The woman blinked slowly. Her lips trembled. "Where am I?" she asked in a weak voice. He stared at her, not knowing what to say. This had to be a dream. He fell, hit his head, passed out, right? He touched her face. It was cold but soft. She was real. "Is it really you?" he whispered. She looked around, confused. I don't know," she said. "It's all dark." Her knees gave out, and she fell. Daniel caught her just in time. She was light, too light, like she hadn't eaten in weeks. He held her tight, heart racing. This was impossible. She had died. He buried her with his own hands. How could she be here, alive, and with no memory of what happened? Daniel carried her to his ship, still unsure what was going on. Inside, he laid her gently on the bed and scanned her with his medical tool. No injuries, no signs of trauma. But something was strange. Her body showed new energy. Something not human, not alien either. Something unknown. She slept quietly, breathing slow. Daniel sat beside her, staring in silence. Was she a clone? A trick? A ghost? Or had the planet done something he couldn't understand? He looked at the scanner again. The strange energy inside her pulsed with every heartbeat. He checked her DNA to 100% match to Aris. This was not a copy, this was her. But then, the ship's lights flickered. The screen glitched, showing symbols he didn't recognize. The scanner beeped loudly, and Aris's eyes flew open. They were glowing silver. Not fully, but enough to scare him. She sat up slowly, her voice hollow. "It's not safe here," she said. "They're watching." Before he could ask what she meant, her eyes closed again. She fell back onto the bed, unconscious. Daniel's hands shook. Something was very wrong. And it had started right at her grave. He looked out the ship's window toward the burial site. Snow had begun to fall again. But something caught his eye. A strange shape in the snow, just beside where her grave had been. A square, too perfect to be natural, like a door buried beneath the ground. Daniel stood up, heart pounding. He knew what he had to do. Tomorrow, he would go back. Back to the place where Aris had died. Back to the mystery that brought her back. And this time, he wouldn't leave without answers. Her fingers twitched as if waking from a long dream. Daniel watched her closely from across the room, afraid to blink. The woman on the bed looked like Aris, spoke like Aris, but something was still wrong. Her chest moved slowly, her skin pale like untouched snow. She didn't wake with fear or confusion. She woke with silence. Then, without warning, her eyes opened, not blue like before, but silver for a moment, glowing faintly. Then the glow faded, and they became soft and blue again. She sat up slowly, as if her bones were remembering how to move. Daniel didn't say a word. He didn't breathe. Her voice was quiet, cracked. "Where am I?" she asked, looking around the small cabin inside his ship. Daniel stepped forward, barely trusting his own voice. "You're safe," he said. "You're on my ship." She looked at him, tilting her head slowly. Something in her expression flickered recognition, or maybe confusion. He hoped it was recognition. He wanted to believe she remembered him. "Do you know me?" he asked, almost afraid of the answer. She stared into his eyes, silent for a long time. Then she spoke, slowly. I remember falling." Daniel swallowed hard. "Yes," he said. "You fell." He sat on the chair beside her and took her hand. It was cold, too cold, but she didn't pull away. She blinked again and whispered, "Did I die?" The question hit him like a punch to the chest. He nodded, not knowing what else to say. Tears filled her eyes, not from fear, but from something deeper. Like she already knew. "I saw light," she whispered. Then, "Nothing," Daniel wiped a tear from his own cheek. "I buried you," he said, his voice shaking. "Right there on the hill." She looked down at her body, confused. "How am I here?" she asked, her fingers brushing over her arms. Daniel didn't have the answer. He showed her the scanner results, the energy lines running through her like glowing rivers. "You're alive," he said, "but something inside you isn't normal." Her breathing slowed, and her voice changed slightly. It grew calm, cold, flat. "They woke me," she said without blinking. "The machine brought me back." Daniel's skin crawled. "What machine?" he asked, but she didn't reply. She suddenly leaned forward and grabbed his hand. Tightly, her voice returned to normal, afraid now. "There's something else," she whispered. "It's not just me, Daniel." He leaned in, confused. "What do you mean?" But she didn't answer. Her body stiffened, and she began to shake, like her nervous system was out of control. The scanner beeped an alarm, showing energy spikes across her brain and chest. Daniel reached for a sedative. But before he could inject her, she screamed. Not like a human scream, deeper, layered, as if two voices screamed at once. Then she collapsed back onto the bed, unconscious again. Daniel stood there in stunned silence. He checked her pulse. It was steady but strange, almost echoing. He backed away, shaken. This was not a simple return to life. He remembered the strange square shape near her grave. A door maybe, or a hatch. Something hidden beneath the ground. He grabbed his gear, his light, and a scanner. If there was a machine under that grave, he needed to find it. Hours later, the snow had stopped falling. Daniel stood again at the gravesite, the wind silent now. He brushed away the snow and found it, exactly where he saw it from the window. A metal plate, smooth and cold. He tapped. It glowed with soft blue light. Symbols appeared on the surface, alien letters he couldn't read. But then, something strange happened. He said her name, Aris, and the symbols changed. They responded. The plate shifted, sank into the ground, and opened. A set of stairs led downward into the dark. Cold air rushed up, but it didn't feel like wind. It felt like breath. Daniel turned on his light and began walking down. Step by step, the air grew warmer. The walls became smoother, metal instead of rock. Lights flickered on automatically as he moved. At the bottom of the stairs was a hallway, and at the end, a door. It opened before he could touch it. Inside was a large room filled with machines, humming softly, and in the center, a glowing pod. Inside the pod, another body. Daniel stepped closer, heart thudding. The face inside the pod was not Aris, but it looked like her, just slightly different. Then the screen beside the pod came to life. A voice spoke, calm and mechanical. "Project Rebirth. Subject 1 success." Daniel's eyes widened. Subject 1? Did that mean there were more? He looked around the room again, and his heart nearly stopped when he saw them. 6 more pods, lined up against the far wall, all dark, all sealed for now. He whispered to himself. What have I found? And somewhere above, back on the ship, Aris opened her eyes again. Asterisk. The lights turned on before he touched the walls. Daniel took one slow step into the underground room, holding his breath. Everything looked ancient, but clean, like it had been waiting for someone to find it, waiting for someone like him. The air was warm, dry, and still, not like a cave, not like a ruin, more like a hospital that hadn't seen people in 100 years, or a tomb that kept breathing. He turned to the pod again, the one that called Aris, Subject 1. The display beside it showed moving symbols and strange graphs, but even without reading the alien text, he knew one thing. Something had brought her back. Daniel touched the glass. Inside, a new face stared blankly through the thick barrier. This one had red hair, shorter ears, and strange green lines glowing under her skin. She didn't look dead. She looked like she was charging. His hand trembled as he stepped back. 6 more pods were lined up nearby, each with its own silent occupant. All female, all different, all still. He raised his scanner, slowly waving it across the room. The energy levels were high off. The charts like the place was alive. The machine wasn't just keeping bodies safe. It was doing something to them, changing them. Daniel's eyes landed on a small panel near the wall. It had a broken human keypad beside it. Dust covered most of it, but when he wiped it clean, he saw the word core. Just that one word in English. The rest was alien language. His fingers hovered over the panel. Then he pressed the large round button in the center. A sharp hiss echoed across the room as a wall panel slid open. Inside was a narrow hallway that sloped downward, deeper into the earth. He followed it, each step echoing louder than the last. At the end of the passage was a door made of black glass. This one didn't open on its own. Instead, a small metal arm came out of the ceiling and scanned his face. Then a voice, mechanical and old, said, "Human accepted." The door opened with a slow rumble. Inside was a chamber glowing with soft blue light. Giant machines lined the walls, spinning and humming like living hearts. In the center of the room was a chair, and next to it, a second pod, open and empty. Daniel stared at it in silence. This pod looked exactly like the one Aris had come from. He walked closer, and a screen next to the pod lit up. A video began playing, grainy but clear enough. He saw Aris, his Aris, standing in the room, hooked up to cables and sensors. She was speaking to someone behind the camera. "If this works," she said, "I may forget everything." Her voice cracked, but she forced a smile. "But maybe I'll wake up again." Daniel watched in disbelief as the video continued. She spoke of the alien technology they discovered, how it wasn't just medical, it was experimental, dangerous, unfinished. She volunteered for it after they learned she was terminally ill, something she never told him. "I didn't want to die," she said in the video, tears in her eyes, "but I didn't want you to watch me fade either." She placed her hand on the side of the pod. "If I come back and I don't remember you, please forgive me." The screen went black. Daniel sank to the floor, heart heavy with shock and sorrow. She wasn't lost in an accident. She chose to risk herself for something impossible, and it worked at a cost. Behind him, the machine started to hum louder. He turned quickly and saw red lights flashing on the wall. One of the other pods, pod 2, was opening. Steam hissed from the edges, the glass rising slowly. Daniel rushed back through the passage, heart pounding. Inside the pod, a second woman blinked her eyes open. Her gaze met his instantly. No confusion, no fear. Instead, she smiled. "I was wondering when you'd come," she said, her voice smooth. Daniel froze. "You speak English?" She stepped out of the pod gracefully, her skin glowing with soft green light. "I was programmed to," she said. "For you." He backed away slowly. "What are you?" She tilted her head playfully. "I'm Subject 2, she said, "and you, Daniel, are part of the plan." Before he could ask more, alarms echoed again. This time, all the pods started to light up. 3, 4, 5, 6. The chamber shook gently under his feet. Energy pulsed through the walls like a heartbeat. Aris, lying unconscious in the ship above, whispered one word in her sleep: run. Her mouth moved before her eyes opened. In the silence of the ship, Aris whispered a word that didn't exist in any known language. It echoed softly through the room, bouncing off metal walls like a ghost searching for someone. Then her eyes opened wide, glowing blue for a moment. She sat up with a sharp breath as if waking from drowning. Daniel wasn't there. The ship was cold, still, and empty, but she could feel him below her, somewhere in the planet's skin. Her fingers touched the side of her head. Pain surged through her mind. Fast and sharp, flashes of light, broken images, faces she didn't know, people screaming, machines sparking, and always the sound of a heartbeat that wasn't hers. She stood up slowly, gripping the wall to steady herself. Her legs felt weak but stronger than before. The energy inside her was growing, and she didn't know if that was good or bad. In the dark tunnel below, Daniel stood face to face with Subject 2. She didn't blink, didn't breathe the way humans did. Her smile was soft, but hollow, like something that had been practiced. Daniel held his stun gun up, unsure if it would do anything at all. "Stay back," he warned. She tilted her head and stepped closer. "I'm not your enemy," she said calmly. "I've waited so long to meet you." "Why?" he asked, not lowering the weapon. "Because you brought her back," she said. "Aris?" "Yes," she replied. "She is the key, but she doesn't know it yet." Daniel's grip tightened on the weapon. "What are the others?" he asked, glancing at the glowing pods. Her voice changed slightly, like a second voice spoke under. "The first, they are US." Suddenly, one of the pods hissed open behind her. Subject 3 stepped out, her movements sharp and fast. Her eyes were pure white, no pupils. She didn't speak, just stared at Daniel like prey. Subject 2 turned and said firmly, "No." Subject 3 paused, tilted her head and stepped back. Daniel's heart raced. "They listen to you?" he asked. "For now," she said, "but not for long." The chamber lights flickered, and the hum of the machines grew louder. The walls vibrated as if something massive had awakened beneath them. Subject 2 looked toward the core tunnel. "We don't have much time," she said. "They'll wake with hunger." "Hunger for what?" Daniel asked, already knowing the answer. "Energy, minds, memory," she replied, her voice softening. "Like Aris?" "No," she said. "Aris was made differently." In that moment, a loud alarm rang out across the chamber. 3 more pods began to unlock. Subject 2 turned back to Daniel and said urgently, "You must take her away before they sense her fully." Daniel's voice broke. "Sense her?" "She's not like us," Subject 2 said. "She's the bridge, and if they take her, she's gone forever." Daniel ran, not waiting to ask more. He sprinted through the tunnels as red lights flashed along the walls. The hum turned into a roar, machines crying like living things in pain. Up above, Aris stumbled to the ship's door and looked out toward the hill. Something beneath the snow glowed like fire under glass. Her hand reached out on its own, her fingers twitching as symbols appeared in her eyes. A voice inside her whispered, "They are waking." She backed away, frightened. "Who are you?" she asked out loud. The voice didn't answer, but her heart beat faster then. She heard footsteps outside. The ship door opened, and Daniel burst inside, breathless and wild-eyed. He ran straight to her and grabbed her hand. "They're coming," he said. "I know," she whispered. "I can feel them." Daniel closed the ship door and locked it tight. They needed to leave, but the engines wouldn't start. The energy from below was interfering with the systems. Subject 2's voice echoed in Daniel's mind suddenly. "Use her." Daniel turned to Aris. "Can you touch the ship's core?" I think so," she said, unsure. "Try." She placed her hand on the control panel, and the ship lit up instantly. Power surged through it like lightning. The engines came alive, roaring stronger than ever. Aris gasped, her eyes glowing. Bright blue, the ship lifted off just as the ground below exploded open. Dark shapes crawled out of the snow. Tall and twisted, subjects 3, 4, and 5 stepped into the light. Their eyes glowing, they stared up at the rising ship, not with anger, but with hunger inside. Aris fell into Daniel's arms, her voice weak. "They're not done," she said. "They'll follow us." Daniel held her close as they flew into the sky. The stars above looked peaceful, but the storm below had just begun, and deep in her chest, the heartbeat that wasn't hers still pulsed. The stars didn't calm her, even far from the planet. Even with the ship in the safety of orbit, Aris clutched her chest, her breaths sharp and uneven. Something inside her was moving, not physically but in her mind, like a presence scratching. Softly against her thoughts, Daniel watched helplessly, holding her trembling hands. "You're safe now," he said, trying to believe his own words. But he knew the truth. They hadn't escaped anything. They'd only made it harder for the enemy to reach her, not impossible. Aris opened her eyes slowly. "There's something inside me," she said, "something not me." Daniel nodded. "I know," he whispered. "I saw the others wake up." She looked at him, and for a brief second, her eyes flickered again, a silver ring around her pupils. "They're still connected," she said, her voice barely her own. "They can see what I see." Daniel moved quickly to the ship's console, scanning her again. The energy inside her was growing, spreading, more complex, more alive, but it wasn't taking over. It was waiting. He searched through the ship's database, opening every file from the underground lab he had downloaded before escaping. Inside one hidden folder, he found a file called Sequence 0. He opened it, and the screen showed something horrifying. An image of Aris floating inside a tank, connected by dozens of cables. A voice began playing, cold, male, and alien. "Subject 0 displays unique cognitive fusion," the voice said. "She is not a host. She is the bridge." Daniel's hands froze on the console. Bridge to what? The video continued. "If Subject 0 awakens fully, the others will obey. If Subject 0 fails, the system collapses." He turned toward her, stunned. "You're not just connected to them," he said. "You control them." Aris didn't answer, but a single tear ran down her cheek. "I don't want to," she said. "They scare me." Before Daniel could respond, the ship's warning lights flashed red. A signal was coming in, a distress call. He checked the source. It was a nearby civilian cargo ship, drifting slowly and silently. The message repeated, "Help. Please, engine failure. Coordinates 442B." Daniel checked the ship's view screen and spotted it. A small freighter floating dead in space. Lights flickering. He hesitated. Could be real, could be a trap. Aris stood beside him now, stronger than before. "We have to help them," she said. "They might not survive." He nodded, steering the ship toward the freighter. As they got closer, the sensors picked up 3 life signs on board, but something didn't feel right. Daniel slowed the approach and activated the scanners again. No distress beacon was physically active. The message was just sound, not a real signal. He turned to Aris. "Do you feel anything?" She closed her eyes, then opened them quickly. "They're here," she said. "It's them." Too late. The freighter powered up suddenly. Hidden weapons aimed at Daniel's ship. Aris reacted instantly, placing her hands on the control panel. Energy surged from her into the ship's systems. A bright blue shield activated, just in time as the enemy fired. The blast shook them hard, but the ship held. Daniel didn't waste a second, spinning the ship away and returning fire. A missile slammed into the freighter's side, but it didn't explode. Instead, it broke open like a metal egg, and from inside it, a dark figure leaped into space. It didn't need oxygen. It didn't need to breathe. It flew straight toward them, using built-in boosters. One of the others, Subject 4. Aris screamed as the connection between them flared like fire. She fell to the floor, holding her head. Daniel rushed to her side as alarms blared again. "I can't stop her," Aris said, tears streaming down her face. "She's stronger. She's awake now." Outside, Subject 4 landed on the hull and began cutting through. Daniel grabbed the shock rifle and handed Aris a pulse knife. "I won't let her take you," he said. But Aris didn't take the weapon. She just looked at him and whispered, "There's only one way to stop them now." Daniel froze. "What do you mean?" She stood slowly, glowing now from inside her skin. "The source," she said. "One may listen to." "It's still active," he understood. They had to go back to the planet, back to the source. Behind them, metal cracked, and the monster forced her way in. Aris turned to Daniel with steady eyes and said, "If I fall, don't let me become one of them." And then the door burst open, and they faced what once was human, and what now had no mercy left inside. She didn't scream when the creature reached for her. Aris stood still as the dark figure crawled through. The hull breach, its arms were too long, its body twisted by wires and glowing scars. But the face, though misshapen, still had a trace of humanity, a broken memory of someone who had once smiled. Daniel fired first, the shock rifle buzzing loudly. In the narrow hallway, the blast hit Subject 4 in the chest, knocking her back, but it wasn't enough. She rose again, hissing like a cornered beast. "Run," Aris whispered, her voice shaking, but Daniel didn't move. "I won't leave you," he said. The creature charged, metal claws sparking against the floor. Aris raised her hands, and a blast of blue light exploded from her palms. It wasn't fire or plasma. It was pure force, something born from inside her. Subject 4 slammed into the wall, smoke rising from her body. She twitched violently, then fell still. Daniel looked at Aris, shocked. "You controlled it," he said. She shook her head. "No," she whispered. "I begged her to stop." The lights in the ship flickered again. Aris fell to her knees. Her energy drained. Daniel caught her just before she collapsed. "I can't hold it anymore," she said, tears in her eyes. "They're fighting inside me, and I'm losing." Daniel lifted her and carried her back to the medbay. He placed her gently on the bed, checking her vitals. The scanner showed her heartbeat doubling, tripling. Something inside her was breaking loose. In the quiet moments that followed, Daniel searched the lab files again. There had to be something, some cure, some way to remove the system inside her. Then he found it, one last entry, buried deep under hundreds of layers. Manual. Core reset. Warning. Subject will be erased. His hand trembled as he read the words. It was the only way to stop the system from taking over her completely. But it would also destroy her mind, memory, everything. He turned toward her. Aris looked at him with tired eyes. "I heard it," she said softly. "I know what you saw." Daniel didn't speak. His heart was too full, his mind too loud. "You have to do it." She said, "No," he whispered. "There has to be another way." "There's not," she replied. "If they reach me, they win." Outside the ship, 3 more life forms were approaching. The others were coming, pulled toward her like moths to light. Time was running out. Daniel loaded the command into the console. A final warning appeared. "Press to begin reset." He stood there, frozen. Aris looked up at him with peace in her eyes. "I'm not afraid," she said. "Just remember me." He leaned down, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "I'll wait for you. Even if it takes a lifetime." Her fingers tightened around his hand. Then she smiled. "You already waited once." He pressed the button. Blue light filled the room. Aris's body arched as energy poured through her. The ship shook, lights flashing wildly outside. The other subjects screamed, clutching their heads in pain. One by one, their bodies shut down, their connection severed, their minds lost inside. Aris's heart slowed. Her body went still. Daniel dropped to his knees, holding her as the final light faded. There were no alarms, no more noise, just silence. He stayed like that for a long time. The ship floated above the planet, dark and alone. Later, He buried her again, not on the cold hill, but in a peaceful orbit above the world, where no one could hurt her again. But something strange happened as the capsule drifted away. His scanner blinked one last time, one small signal, a heartbeat. He didn't understand it. He didn't know if it was real or just hope playing tricks. But he smiled anyway, because maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end. The capsule was gone, but the signal stayed. For days, Daniel sat in silence, watching the slow pulse of light on the scanner, a small steady rhythm, too soft to track, too stubborn to vanish. He told himself it was a glitch, a ghost in the machine, but still, he couldn't turn it off every night. He replayed her last words in his mind. Remember me. He didn't just remember her, he felt her, in every corner of the ship, in every quiet moment between stars. Time passed slow and heavy. He repaired the ship, cleared the remaining files, and erased all traces of the system. The other subjects were gone, disconnected, without energy. No more waking nightmares. No more voices. He became a drifter, traveling system to system, helping those in need, avoiding those who asked too many questions. But wherever he went, that signal followed, not loud, not dangerous, just there. One day, near the edge of a quiet star system, the signal changed. Just one small change, its pattern shifted. 2 pulses instead of 1. A double beat, like a real heart. Then it vanished. Daniel stared at the screen. Breath held. He tried to reconnect, to rescan, but the signal was gone. For the first time in months, he felt truly alone again. Then came the knock. It didn't make sense. He was in deep space, thousands of kilometers from any station. No ships nearby, no broadcasts, no alerts. And yet someone was knocking on his ship's airlock. He stood frozen, gun in hand, heart pounding. 3 soft knocks, not loud, not rushed. Familiar. He opened the internal camera feed. The screen flickered and showed her, standing outside, wearing a white cloak, hair loose, glowing softly under the stars. No helmet, no oxygen tank. Just her alive. He opened the airlock and she stepped inside. Her skin was warm, her eyes bright, no silver glow, no fear, just a Reese. He didn't speak, didn't dare. She smiled, stepped closer, and touched his chest. I found my way back, she said. I told you I would. Daniel stared at her, tears in his eyes. How? He whispered. She leaned her forehead against his. I don't know, she said. But when you let me go, part of me stayed. They sat together in the quiet cabin. No alarms, no scans, just breath and heartbeat. Real this time, human and alien together. She looked out the window at the stars, then back at him. They're gone now, she said. The voices, the system, it's all gone. Daniel wrapped his arms around her gently. I buried you twice, he whispered. Reese smiled. Then I guess I get to live twice. They didn't need to go anywhere, not yet. They stayed in orbit, floating gently, alone but not lost, because this time she came back not as a project, not as a subject, but as herself. And Daniel knew no scanner, no machine, no system could ever explain what had happened. But he didn't need it to. She was home, and that was enough.